Why not buy one big monitor instead of putting two smaller ones side by side? Well, I guess that's more or less the idea behind ultrawide monitors like this LG 34GN850. But I also do acknowledge that some guys will actually build massive multi-monitor setups with this thing. And this certainly isn't a small monitor. We're looking at a 34-inch IPS panel that's stretched across a 21:9 aspect ratio, meaning it's as high as a typical 27-inch monitor, but roughly 1.3 times as wide. We're also getting a vertical resolution of 1440p and a refresh rate of 160Hz. So this basically is like a classic high refresh rate 27-inch 1440p monitor with a bit more display attached on either side. Now, as the 34GN850 is also advertised as having a super fast Nano IPS panel, it would be reasonable to assume that we're getting the same excellent gaming performance we're getting with LG's 27-inch Nano IPS panels. We'll have a detailed look on that in a bit, but I can already preempt two things. LG didn't just cut a bigger chunk from the same mother glass. This actually is a different panel material than what we're getting in monitors like the LG 27GN850, Omen 27i or Dell S2721DGF, which all use the same LG panel. Despite the different panel, I can also preempt that we're getting comparably excellent gaming performance. So in some ways this can be seen as a stretched 27GN850, and it certainly looks pretty similar as well. We get the typical red plastic below the stand and a red circle on the back side of the monitor. The 34-inch complements that with a shiny UltraGear logo. This actually is a bit odd, as the 34GN850 should come with a plain LG logo, whereas my copy has the same design as the 34GP83A. Spec-wise, these two are identical monitors with minor differences in box content, so that's probably just LG quietly merging two basically identical products into one. I tried squeezing out some more information from LG about any potential differences, but without success. As the GP83A is cheaper in some regions but not available in others, I would basically get whichever is available for less money. I will link both models down below. Regardless of the model name, we get 3440 horizontal pixels on a slightly curved panel. It has a radius of 1.8 meters, which isn't too unreasonable for an ultra-wide monitor. I'm usually not a big fan of working on curved screens, but with this one I felt the supple curve makes sense, as it slightly reduces the distance between the eyes and the edges of the screen without being so curved that the image starts to look distorted. Now, it's not surprising that a monitor which is more than 80 cm wide is quite heavy. So the stand is somewhat big as well and covered with a high quality plastic. Still, the monitor does wobble a bit when you touch it. If you don't like using the included stand, you can also use the Vaser mount instead, but the included stand already provides decent adjustability of height and tilt. Swivel and pivot can't be adjusted, which I don't think would be necessary for a monitor like this anyway. However, I wish the range of height adjustment would reach a bit further down. A look under the monitor reveals the directional toggle for menu navigation and an otherwise smooth surface, giving away that the 34GN850 does not come with built-in speakers. There's a 3.5mm jack on the backside of the monitor though, if you like to use that. Here we also find a USB hub, which obviously isn't exactly convenient on the backside of the monitor. However, that little cable routing thing is quite practical to have. Now, the real star of the show obviously is that wide 34-inch panel, and I was pretty curious to see how the gaming experience would be and which games even support that 21:9 aspect ratio to begin with. Warzone and Modern Warfare are pretty well optimized for ultrawide gaming, aside from a few short cutscenes that have black bars on either side. But where it matters, the game expands across the whole screen, giving us a pretty neat FOV advantage. I felt I was seeing opponents in the corner of the eye I would otherwise have missed. As opposed to just cranking up the FOV slider on a 60:9 monitor, the FOV advantage here comes without giving up zoom to challenge distant targets. The game still looks the same, it's just more on either side. If we crank up the FOV slider as well, this gets pretty ridiculous. In Rainbow Six Siege, which also had no problem supporting ultrawide, the 90-degree setting in combination with this monitor is just insane. 75 clearly was enough for me. Of course, you could also play with a stretched 16:9 resolution as well, but that leaves us with the same FOV as a traditional monitor. Take a look at the bump on the left for instance. Going from 16:9 to 21:9 makes the difference between seeing the bump or not. Well, that's obviously an advantage, and I've even heard some people calling that cheating. This might be the reason why Valorant, which arguably is a very competitive game, doesn't render aspect ratios wider than 16:9 at all, leaving us with black bars left and right. We are basically converting the ultrawide into a plain normal 27-inch screen here. Things get really interesting in Fortnite. The normal game modes, including creative mode, fully support wide aspect ratios, giving us a decent FOV boost. Well, I still got completely destroyed there, but at least I've seen it coming. As soon as starting an arena match though, which is the more competitive ranked mode inside Fortnite, we are forced to a 60:9 aspect ratio. Interestingly enough, Counter-Strike, which arguably is the grandfather of competitive shooters, supports the 21:9 aspect ratio without a problem. But any potential FOV advantage isn't worth much if the panel itself isn't good at all. And as the 27-inch Nano IPS panel from LG is great, there are high hopes for this one as well. Now, in the beginning of this video I said the panel of the 34GN850 differs from said 27-inch counterparts. We can see that when taking a close look at the pixel structure. Comparing this to monitors that sport the 27-inch Nano IPS panel, we can see that the ultrawide has subpixels that are shaped a bit more like boomerangs or rotated V's if you will, whereas the subpixels of the 27-inch panel are just straight. So the 34-inch is not just a bigger chunk from the same panel material. Though these different pixel structures don't have any noticeable effect on text rendering or clarity, but they give away the fact that these panels are not the same. But they actually have very similar characteristics. First off, we get a pretty comparable contrast ratio. Now, LG's Nano IPS panels are not exactly known for their great contrast ratio, and this panel is no exception, measuring below 900:1 with my new colorimeter. I also did some measurements with my old device for the sake of comparability, giving me a contrast ratio in the 600:1 range, just slightly better than what I got from the Dell S2721 DGF and Omen 27i. Now, the takeaway points are that my old Spider 5 wasn't good at measuring contrast, and most importantly, the 34GN850 shouldn't be your first choice for watching movies in the dark or doing critical editing where accurate black level performance is key. For gaming though, the low contrast ratio isn't a problem. When playing dark games at night, black parts will appear slightly grayish, but not in such a way that it gets annoying or will negatively affect your gameplay. It certainly helps that the 34GN850's brightness can be adjusted in a wide range. I really appreciate the possibility of setting the monitor to just 24 candelas per square meter for nighttime usage. That's very dim, and not many other monitors can be dimmed down that much. Turning the brightness up to 100 leaves us a tad below the advertised brightness of 400 candelas per square meter, though this is still pretty bright and plenty to ensure good visibility in a bright room. Now, as the LG has a big curved panel, I was somewhat concerned about potential ununiformity issues. But as it turns out, I've received a copy with excellent backlight uniformity. Even with the exaggerated exposure, the backlight appears even, with only some slight glow towards the edges. This is even better than what I got with the smaller Nano IPS panels. When displaying a wide test picture, the uniformity is excellent, with the dim spot being only 8% darker than the middle of the screen. The average brightness deviation is just about 3%, so this is an excellent result and the picture appears extremely uniform to the eye. I actually didn't expect such a great result from a big curved screen. I did, however, expect great color performance. Alongside its gaming capabilities, this is one of the key advertising features of LG's Nano IPS technology, and the ultra-wide panel does not disappoint. The monitor can be calibrated very accurately, giving us professional level delta E's. Now, you won't get this level of accuracy when using my ICC profile with your copy, but you'll likely get a better result than without using any profile at all. I've linked the ICC in the description down below. Make sure to use one of those two gamer profiles with Gamma Mode 2 and replicate these RGB settings. You may already have spotted that there's an sRGB mode as well, which we'll get to in just a bit. Outside the sRGB mode, we get about 90% coverage of the more professional color spaces. And the most important sRGB color space is completely covered, as we would expect from such a monitor. The overall color volume is even 1.4 times as big as sRGB. This of course leads to oversaturation when displaying sRGB content without using an ICC profile with proper color management. But this is where the sRGB mode comes in handy. Many applications, including games, don't support color management through ICC profiles, so we need the monitor to keep the saturation in check. And this is the first time I've got a monitor that actually has a useful sRGB mode. Still, most options like RGB balance or overdrive are locked in this mode, but crucially, controlling the brightness is still possible. And the accuracy of this mode is reasonably good as well, at least in terms of color accuracy. The white point is slightly off with a shift towards green. The human eye can adapt to that, but I wish the RGB sliders wouldn't be grayed out, leaving us an easy way to fix the slight shift. Now, the full calibration and profiling unsurprisingly leads to better results. But the beauty of an sRGB mode is that color saturation is kept under control in every applications and not just in those that are supporting profiles. So I've also made an ICC profile for the sRGB mode that fixes the white point. This might sound counterintuitive at first. I mean, I just said the sRGB mode is great for applications that do not support ICC profiles. But as the calibration part of the ICC profile is handled directly by the graphics card, the white point fix will be applied in every application and not just in color managed ones. You will find that profile in the video description as well. Strangely, the sRGB mode locks the overdrive mode to fast. We will take a detailed look at the motion performance in a minute, but let's first talk about the refresh rate and adaptive sync capabilities. The panel can be quote-unquote overclocked to 160Hz, meaning there's a toggle in the menu you just have to activate. Well, and you have to use the DisplayPort input, which you should be using anyway. Activating the OC option makes 160Hz available for selection in your graphics card control panel, with the only downside being that this isn't compatible with 10-bit input. So either choose 144Hz 10-bit or 160Hz 8-bit. I didn't notice any difference in gradient smoothness between those modes that would be worth mentioning, hence I take the 16Hz extra over the additional 2 bits. Either way, we get adaptive sync support in the form of Nvidia's G-Sync and AMD's FreeSync, both down to 48Hz. Nvidia also certified this monitor as G-Sync compatible and even put a sticker on the stand for us to peel off. Thanks, I guess. There's no FreeSync Premium sticker, but it's compatible anyway. I tested this monitor with a 2070 Super and got flawless G-Sync performance as expected. Though my poor graphics card had a hard time reaching close to 160Hz in titles like COD Modern Warfare and Warzone. I'm usually gaming in 1440p as well, but in a 60:9 aspect ratio. Due to the 21:9 aspect ratio, there are quite a few pixels more that need to be rendered. This still is far less than 4K, but you still need a somewhat capable system to properly drive this monitor. Though I assume you will have that if you spend about $1,000 for a monitor. Now, for that kind of money, we would expect not just getting a big panel, but a fast one as well. And fast response times and therefore less smearing clearly is a major selling point of LG's Nano IPS panels. As usual, I've used Blur Buster's pursuit camera technique to capture the motion performance. The 34GN850 provides 4 different overdrive levels. Starting with off, which likely represents the native performance, we already get only small amounts of ghosting. But fast clearly tops that with excellent performance at the maximum refresh rate of 160Hz. Faster is the overdrive mode that LG specifies the 1 millisecond gray-to-gray response time for. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Honestly, don't use faster and go for fast instead. Fast is also the best performer at 144Hz and 120Hz. So fast is an excellent choice for adaptive sync. Even down to 60Hz, fast is a solid choice, so we have a single overdrive mode that can be used across the whole refresh range. This makes the fact that the sRGB mode locks the overdrive to fast a non-issue. Let's put the performance of the 34GN850 into perspective. Comparing the best 160Hz performance to the best 165Hz performance of the S2721 DGF I recently reviewed, we get pretty comparable results. The same is true for the Omen 27i, which of course isn't a coincidence. All three monitors use LG's Nano IPS panels, and LG obviously did a great job ensuring that their ultra-wide panel delivers the same excellent performance as the 27-inch counterparts. So despite the 34GN850 being a big chunky ultra-wide monitor, it ranks alongside the fastest IPS monitors that are currently available. It's safe to say that I quite enjoyed testing the 34GN850. Gaming on an ultra-wide is a great experience, especially if you're having such a fast panel. I mean, the potential FOV advantage is awesome to have, but it's the combination with that 160Hz refresh rate and top-of-the-line motion performance that really makes this monitor special. Well, the price of this monitor is also a bit special. This will set you back around $1,000 or a bit cheaper if you can get your hands on the 34GPA3A. That would also buy you two 27-inch GN850s, while the 34-inch is only about 1.3 times as wide. So not having a bezel between your screens obviously comes at a premium. Thanks for watching and consider to subscribe.